Well, good morning to all our listeners and to all our viewers. We're very happy to welcome you. And just in case I forget later on, if you look at the bottom of your screen as you watch this, you'll see a little subscribe button. If you haven't already punched that, punch it now. And that way you'll get an email notification for every time that Pat and I open our mouth. On screen, that is, on screen. What we might be doing off screen is a totally different matter and none of your business. But if you want the on-screen stuff, hit subscribe. You also can hit like if you choose to. Okay, here we are. Well, Pat, how's the farm today in Donegal?
Grant, it's a beautiful day here so far, but as usual, Jude, I'm waiting for the rain, which normally accompanies. There's a pattern. It starts in the morning, the sun shines, and by about dinner time, it's raining.
You wouldn't want to think about it too much. I think it's part of this whole pattern of weather and the climate crisis. They say that we're due, England and us, going to get nothing but quite warm summers, but very, very wet summers. So, wait, you wouldn't like to think about that in terms of your grandchildren? Sure, you wouldn't.
Absolutely not.
Jesus, they'll have to build everything on stilts from now on. Okay, now let's have a look at some of the more important, some of the important things that are happening. We're going to be covering a move about the Gaza Road. We're going to be covering a man called Benjamin Netanyahu, and we're going to be covering what else? We're going to be covering.
There's an attack in Paris this morning, by the way.
That's right. Yeah, that might link in with the statement from Sammy Wilson in the House of Commons about the advisability of giving money to the GAA or for Casement Park specifically. Okay, let's start with the startling news that the Orange Order has specifically requested to be allowed to march down Drumcree or down Garvaghey Road. As they do they come every day, every week, Pat? I'm not sure.
Apparently, they come every Sunday.
Every 52
weeks a year.
Yeah, God loves a trier.
Oh, God loves a trier. And they said they want to complete the march 26 years later. And it's their religious and civil liberties that they should have the right to do so.
Yeah.
You sort of have to say, well, no, what century do these people belong to? Jude, let's get this clear, and I'm making it very clear. They have no right, religious or civil, to march through an area on a sectarian, bigoted, because that's what it is. Let's get that clear.
Don't be too hard on them now, because the Orange Order said they were going to ask specifically for this coming Sunday because it would have least impact on the community. As most of them, it says, and I quote, most will either be away to Croke Park or will be in clubs, pubs or homes watching and supporting their County Armagh GAA playing in the final of the All-Ireland. And the aptly named Carla Lockhart, DUP Upper Bann MP, has said that the Lodge's move was very forward-thinking and a positive attempt to complete this. Is that true that most people would be involved with the All-Ireland final?
Jude, that is absolute bollocks. Absolute bollocks. Well, basically, this is a stunt. Think about it for even a second. Here's Armagh involved in this uniquely Irish thing, an All-Ireland final. And it's a sneer and a sort of an attempt to, we're going to march down. While they're doing that, it's a total stunt. And they picked the Sunday that Armagh in the All-Ireland final to go ahead and put the attempt to march down. Jude, I think it's actually more cynical that what they're attempting now than any other time. Because
they're not going to, the thing is that orange marches disturb people and they're going places they're not wanted. But if in fact, as they say, most of Armagh will be inside watching the game, is that not a good time to do it? When
no, not at all. No, there's a symbolism there. They're insisting that they have the right to march in any Catholic area or any. Jude, I've made this point a million times. Would a GAA band or a Republican band be allowed to march down some of the tunnel area Portadown or where is the Protestant area? Would they be allowed to march down the Shankill? Would they be allowed to march down Ballymena? Jude, it's deliberately aimed at stirring up trouble. And the Garvaghey Road, Jude, why do people of the Orange Order, who Catholics are not allowed to join, by the way, why do they insist on marching through a Catholic area? Jude, I would no
it's
more.
A traditional route, Pat. Traditional route.
Jude. No, Jude, I think that's the whole thing. It's about time it was really called out. It's sectarianism of the worst kind. I would not demand to march through the Shankill Road or the Fountain in Derry. I have no interest in sort of stirring up anything on my Protestant neighbours. And I don't think any nationalists or Catholics should have to put up with this sort of crap.
Oh, okay, here's a question for you. Do you think all orange marches should be banned?
No, Jude.
I do.
No, if they want to march through Ballymena or Portadown and their own areas, but go ahead. If there's some field that's owned by a big Protestant farmer or a loyalist farmer and they want to march around, march all day to you, but don't go where you. Jude, remember the famous one, Bellaghy? I think there was 99 families or something, Catholic families, and one Protestant family in Bellaghy. And the guys coming to Derry for the Apprentice Boys Parade used to stop at the village of Bellaghy and insist on marching through Bellaghy and then getting back on the bus on the other side. Now, Jude, you tell me what was the point of that?
Aye, well, that's it. I'd agree with you. The point of that was to antagonize people.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I find two things. I find myself on one side and the other side. I find myself on the side of Carla Lockhart and the Orange Order in saying that they would be creating least disturbance because most people will be indoors watching the game. I think that's probably factually true. However, my view is also on the other side, I don't think there should be any orange marches anywhere, any more than they think there should be Ku Klux Klan marches anywhere. And even a man, a generous farmer, give a field to allow them to do it, I would be against the Ku Klux Klan marching in that field. And I feel the same way about the Orange Order. The Orange Order is a anti-Catholic organization. That's as simple as that. Now, if it's anti-Catholic, it's going to be anti-Catholic when it's parading in a Catholic district, or it's going to be anti-Catholic when it parades in a Protestant district. Nothing will change that. I am simply amazed that people haven't called. Jerry Adams doesn't call for that, for example. He praises the various districts who have brought the thing down now to one or two little contentious marches, and maybe no contentious marches, personal like this, and the one in the Ardoyne. But I would disagree with him there. I simply don't believe that the Orange Order is a force for good. I think it's a force for division. I think it's a force for antagonism. And I think it's shameful that we should allow it to continue. And I'd be all for supporting the those who are in the Orange Order to engage in other activities or set up some other kind of organization. And I think they should be supported in that. But I do think the Orange Order is a sectarian outfit. And I don't know why people don't admit that. Do you not agree, Pat? Do you think that it is a sectarian organization?
I feel actually quite strongly about this because I think it's about time people in the Protestant community or the Loyalist community faced up to the fact that this is not about civil and religious liberty. It's bollock. That is absolute rubbish. What it's about is annoying, antagonizing, and showing who's boss to your nationalists. It's not a celebration of culture. It's a celebration of triumphalism, that we can march when we want and all that. We can march to King's Highway. Right. The very simple test, Jude, and I keep reverting to this, is reverse it and see how many. Right. Bobby Sands Memorial Band, as I said to you last day, could it march down through the centre of Portadown? Could the Bobby Sands Memorial Band march down the Shankill Road? Could it march to the Fountain area? Not a chance. There'd be riots. Yet they seem to think that they have entitled. Jude, I sort of semi-disagree with you. Look, I'm not denying. If this is a big thing in their culture, fair enough. No, see if there's a big field somewhere in Portadown, march away.
Well, I'm not sure. It is a big thing in their culture. I quite agree with you. But I think it's a sort of in the end, it's a kind of a shameful thing.
Don't oppose it in somebody else.
I know most Orange people who march don't think in those terms any more than, they simply want a day out.
I'm not saying I'm sure there's a lot of very decent Orange men who and all the rest of it. It's not the individual. It's the whole concept of Orangism that's anti-Catholic. And then, Jude, the whole idea, like, Jude, I don't buy it. I think the whole thing marching down, and this is forward thinking, says Carla Locker. You march down during the All-Ireland final. I think there's something even more cynical about that, because here's this celebration of Armagh, of their Irishness and all the rest, and here we're going to go down them. I think that's almost sending out a subliminal message. Hey, we got our own way.
Somebody said to me, and we'll leave it at this. Somebody said to me this idea that most people will be in their homes watching the All-Ireland final. Said it's like saying we're going to march through your house, but that's okay. You'll be asleep.
That's much like it. Exactly, Jude. I wouldn't do it on them. And I wouldn't insist that our community do it on them. And I don't think that should be reciprocated. They should be allowed to march whether or not.
It won't be, Pat. Believe me, that battle has been fought and won. But it is sad to see it still being, people trying to push it on and doing it in the name of not an inch.
That's exactly what it is. It's sort of saying nothing's changed, Jude. This is 2024, not 1924 or 1824.
Okay, let's leave that sad scene in Portadown and move.
What about Sammy and the?
Oh yes, West... Sammy. I forgot about Sammy. Sammy was having a word or two about the Casement Park thing, and he's horrified. He says he's really horrified at the idea of how much money did he say? It's over 300,000, 300 million. Yeah. And what was his suggestion for the money?
He said basically he was horrified by the fact that they were considering spending public money, 300 million, on a place where 5 matches would be played, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he just reminded me of Trump. That there's that sort of lie that you only tell half the truth. It's not 5 matches. There'll be 5 matches in the European, but there will be for many years to come. There'll be many more matches. There'll be big GA matches, and I'm sure there'll be concerts there. It will add considerably to the landscape and infrastructure of Belfast. There could be many other big soccer matches played there. Who knows what's going to happen and various other things. So Sammy, to sort of try to mislead Parliament by saying it's 300 million for just 5 matches, it's totally dishonest.
Well, it'd be a very bad idea if they pull the money on that, if they don't allow it to be built. I mean, it'd be the stupidest move of unionism yet if their agitation led to the cancelling of Casement Park. Because rugby's got their stadium, soccer's got their stadium, and now we come to the nationalists. No stadium, even though you're going to host soccer.
And by the way, the other thing as well is they're talking about cost. Like what Raven Hill got and what Windsor Park got was par for the time. But the GA, okay, it might be 300 million, but that's par for today. That's the reality.
In addition, the South has put in something like 15 million into it, which
and the GA are putting quite a lot of money into it as well.
Yeah. Well, I actually think this is, if you remember Ian Paisley Senior, remember the time he spoke at the Oxford Union and he took out this unconsecrated host, and made a laugh at it and says, do you know that Roman Catholics consider this to be the body and blood, sinew and bones of our Savior Jesus Christ. He was condemned for that. He said, I wasn't talking to the Oxford Union. I was talking to the people back in Ballymena and such places. That's what Sammy's doing there. Did Sammy get by this time with a reduced majority by any chance?
A very reduced majority. I think it was less than 2,000.
Well, that's what's called forward planning, Pat. Thinking 5 years ahead. Okay.
But Ian Paisley did. There was a guy, a journalist I used to know who knew Paisley well. And, I remember when the Pope went to, the European Parliament, and Paisley stood up. And this guy, he was an editor of a paper in that area. He said, Paisley didn't give a monkeys. He said he was playing for the audience back home, and that was the audience got him elected. That was the audience made him leader of the DUP, and that was the audience that went to his church. And he says, well, what you or I think of him doesn't matter. This was the people he was playing to, and I think that's what they're all playing to, as you rightly point out.
Must be racking his brains to think of some way that he could come up with something that would maybe ease his progress, because it's a terrible humiliation. It really is. Although I have to admit that he departed gracefully. He didn't scream or shout or bawl. He did it very elegantly, I must say. But it must really rankle that after so long, his father should have held the seat for so long, he should have held it for so long, and now
54 years.
boom, it's gone. Okay, let's leave these parochial matters and let's go to the I was going to say the Middle East, but Middle East related matters. Go to Washington, D.C., where Benjamin Netanyahu made a visit yesterday, and I watched it on TV, and I used so many bad words that I would take me half an hour to tell you what they were, Pat. And your modest ears would be shocked. Do you think I was wrong to be so indignant or so furious?
No, Jude, not at all. I think I really don't know. You need a better brain than I have. I think America has lost all moral authority. To give a war criminal, a genocidal maniac, a thug, a barbarian, 50 or so standing ovations, and even Jeremy Bowen. No, I don't mean that way. Even Jeremy Bowen. Let's be fair, he's one of the best. The BBC's political editor. He didn't use the word lie, but he basically said he said he wasn't telling the truth on at least 3 occasions. He says the evidence is that Israelis have bombed refugee centers and hospitals. There's evidence they are using starvation as a weapon and all the rest of it. And this thing, but the overarching thing that really got me, that he said the people outside were Hamas supporters and some of them were even paid. And then, of course, he said that it was a battle. Israel was fighting a battle for civilization against barbarians. Jude, if he's doing it in my name, no thanks.
I was thinking, I was trying to bring it down to sort of human terms, or so you could get a grasp of it. It's kind of like if you or I were to get a bunch of people, men, women, children, ordinary people, and put them into a field, this famous field you talked about, and lock the gate, and then we would kill a lot of them. We'd bomb, we'd machine gun them, we'd kill every last one of them.
Snipers,
and not only that,
not feed them.
Not only that, Pat, but there would be a huge, well, not a huge, but say about 100 people watching us, representatives, clapping and cheering for every bomb and every bullet we fired into their midst. For every corpse that was brought out, they'd be clapping their hands off. I felt ashamed. I really felt ashamed of humanity. I felt, how in God's name can those people look at themselves in the mirror and say, I'm a human being, or I'm a compassionate person? It's just bloody awful. I saw, incidentally, where in the Washington hotel where Netanyahu was staying, some protesters released a bunch of maggots and mealworms and some other things like that. Frankly, compared to Netanyahu, those were noble creatures. And compared to the members of Congress who clapped and cheered and stood up, I would say I give my vote to a worm meal anytime, or a mealworm.
Exactly. No, Jude, I'm only speaking for myself. I grew up in Ireland where we looked to America as the sort of the shining city on the hill type thing. It's where a lot of our people emigrated to, and they all made good lives. And then we all bought the Hollywood version of America. Jude, I am absolutely disgusted by American politicians. Now, the American people's a different thing, but Jude, see, and I am firmly of the view that they have been totally bought by AIPAC. They're more concerned about their seats and about their opponent getting American or Jewish money to run against them, and that's a fact. Even what do you call her, Kamala Harris didn't show up at the thing, but it was a scheduling problem. She had a different date in her diary. They hadn't even the balls to say, no, we're staying away in protest. 12 Democrats, in fairness to them, stayed away. 12 senators stayed away. So there's at least that. But they didn't come out and protest. They just sort of, silently didn't come along.
Well, we're going to move to a topic now, except you want to go on further than that. But to do with the Olympics, and there is a link there. We'll come to it. You drew attention to the fact that not just are the Olympics starting today in Paris, but that Minister Emily Udea Castera has said that authorities were working to evaluate the impact of the rail strikes on travelers and athletes and so on. And she says that playing against the game, that is these rail strikes,
Yeah.
is playing against France, against your own camp, against your country. Would you agree with that, Pat? Do you think?
I think it's slightly over the top, but I suppose the Olympics is the showcase, and they've spent billions on it. The other thing, Jude, there's arson attacks all over the place this morning. And they said they're coordinated and they're very clever. Earlier this week, the what do you call these? There were I think 5 coffins placed at the Eiffel Tower. French soldiers in Ukraine. Apparently, Macron had said that he's considering sending French soldiers to Ukraine. Apparently, a Bulgarian man and 2 others were arrested. Earlier this week, too, Microsoft said there were Russian actors at play trying to sort of disrupt the communication system. And you see, here's the thing, Jude. Putin is capable of doing this because Russia has been banned from the Olympics and so on. And I think he wants to remind people that Russia has been sort of, as he feels, discriminated against. But anyway, apparently there's all sorts of things going on, and they're pointing the finger very clearly at Russia.
Well, listen, I've just drawn attention to something I'd forgotten about. You're saying that Russia has been banned from the Olympic Games, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know because the figures haven't come through yet. But I'd ask myself, has Putin been responsible for the deaths of more undefended people than has Netanyahu? Do you know what I think, Pat? I think not only Ireland, the south, all of Ireland, not only Ireland, but every country should have withdrawn from the Olympic Games in protest at the presence of Israel and let Israel compete with itself at the Olympics and get the message through. It's because people put all their interest. I know people have prepared for, maybe a decade to be at the peak of their form. I know there's huge amount of organization. I know there's a huge amount of money. But think every night, the message has been rammed home to us every night. Dozens and dozens and hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people being killed. Ordinary children. And then crying in front of our eyes, and that we're seeing them in hospitals being bombed. The thing is absolutely obscene. Why Ireland shouldn't?
But it's well hard to be because I have sympathy with any American politician. Kamala Harris was on. I saw a thing there. I think it was earlier this week, and she said, "Look," she says, "I have seen the photographs coming out of Gaza. I've seen the videos. I've seen," and she said, "You couldn't fail to be moved by it." And I think it was a British, the accent was some British. And he said, "But would you condemn the attack on the tent city and all the rest?" She says, "I am not here to tell Israel how to conduct this war." Jude, any normal human being said, if what the Israelis are said to have done, it's confirmed that they did do that, that's a war crime.
He has been declared a war criminal. And it was the duty of American authorities to arrest him yesterday when he landed.
That's a hypocrisy.
Instead of arresting, they clapped him.
Jude, that's Americans have been pleading this thing. By the way, the moral authority of the Americans, from here on, international law means nothing, and the Americans have just, if our ally does something, the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, Amnesty, Oxfam, Concern, doctors, Medicine Sans Frontier, UN, UNRWA, I could keep going, have all condemned Israelis. It's not just one organization, and I could keep going, there's plenty more. And they have all, but the Americans say, no, you are all wrong. We're right because Israel is our ally.
Well, as if we weren't seeing the evidence with our own eyes every evening of the week.
Yeah.
Oh dear! I found last night watching. I couldn't watch all of it. I watched about 5 minutes. I couldn't stand it anymore.
Do you want to know the truth? And this is true. As a friend of mine, he says he watching Netanyahu. He says it's live on CNN. I sent back a message to him. I would turn my stomach, and it'd be seriously bad for my blood pressure. Dude, I just can't watch that, man. I think we're watching a war criminal get feted and lionized by absolute morons.
Well, that was the really upsetting thing. I knew what Netanyahu was, and of course he's going to speak out for his own, as he would see his own people and give his version of events. But
Yeah.
God Almighty, the rest of the world knows better, and yet they support him. There's truly no depths to which some people will sink. The funny thing was, they all looked as if they meant it.
Yeah, but here's the thing,
As if they were doing it.
if the Americans are so sure, why don't they invite some leading Palestinian to give a speech to the American Congress? You know, like it's so what would you say, bigoted and sectarian that their guy, you know, they don't allow the other side to give theirs. You know, it's ridiculous.
And the sad thing too, as you say, is the bright hope for the future. That the now presumably the Democratic candidate Kamala Harris is going to is not prepared to go really do anything other than just gently hint that she mightn't have been too excited by or an approval of what the Israel was doing.
Jude, I read Barack Obama's autobiography of his time in the White House. And and he said Israel created more problems for him than enough. He says because the rest of the world would turn around saying, why have you one set of rules for the rest of the world and a different set of rules for Israel? And he says he could never answer that question. And like it still holds true. Jude, the Americans, the hypocrisy and the double standards. I think put it like this, Jude, I think the day of American sort of moral standing and sort of what would you say is gone. Americans, this freedom and democracy. You'll see that the minute they open their mouth, from here on, I think most people just laugh. There's no such thing as dishonesty is off the scale.
Yeah. Somebody said in my blog, made a comment and said the Germans don't feel they can condemn Israel for anything because the shadow of the Holocaust hangs over them. He says anybody under 90 should feel under no guilt with regard to the Holocaust. And I feel that too. And I think it's pointless, for example, in Ireland, it's pointless to have British politicians stand up and apologise for the Great Hunger. They weren't there, so they have a free pass. That was bad, it happened, and shameful that their ancestors did it, but it's not their fault. They didn't do it. And the same applies in terms of Germany and the world. I know the world feels guilty for the terrible things that happened to the Jews during the Second World War. But I tell you, we didn't do it. Nobody alive did it. Practically nobody alive.
The only one thing that there's a lot of very good Jewish people in America. I was watching Jewish Voices for Peace or something. There were a whole lot of young people. There was a young girl. She was very articulate. And I was so proud of her. She says, like, this has been done in our name and we reject it totally. And I'm hoping there's quite a lot of, in fairness, quite a lot of Jewish people in Israel who are far from happy with Netanyahu and far from happy with what's going on.
There was people demonstrating, there were some quite vivid demonstrations by Jewish groups to Netanyahu's visit. That's the only thing that gives you hope.
And there are a lot of very decent Jewish people who are absolutely horrified by what's going on.
Incidentally, the possibility is that assuming that Kamala Harris is nominated as the presidential candidate, there's talk of her having as her running mate Josh Shapiro, who is Jewish. Would you be in favor of that as a choice? Would his Jewishness affect your views on him?
No, it wouldn't. I don't.
I'm going to say I won't. I've asked you this question once. Add to it and say, is that regardless of how he feels about Israel's activities?
I can't answer that question. I genuinely don't know. Like, I need to know his view. Like, that's a guy I know very little about.
Well, I know nothing about him, but I'm just saying.
Like your man Gavin Newsom and various others, Governor of California, and a couple others. Shapiro, I don't think I've ever heard tell of.
But I do know that he's Jewish, and I do know that he looks like he's going to. Well, it may well be the running mate. I think it's a valid question as to whether or not you need to know what is his views on the burning question of the day, the Gaza war. Is he supportive of Israel?
Okay,
If he's
I
supportive
can
of
give you.
Israel, I
By the
don't
way,
think he should be the
you're
presidential
asking a
candidate.
hypothetical question. I can give you the answer right now here and now. He's without question. He's in favour of it because every American politician is.
Jeez. Well, he'd be doubly in favour of it then, because he
Yeah,
would, from the point of view of Jewishness.
yeah.
Jesus, man, Joseph. Sorry, I shouldn't be swearing like that, but you get to a point
Uh,
where you know where to turn. Okay, last number, last little piece here. Brian Finney has an article in the Irish News, and he talks about the fact that there's something that happened I didn't know about. He says that the Oireachtas Joint Committee on the Implementation of the Good Friday Agreement published its first report recently, Perspectives on Constitutional Change. And it's looking at things like people with 5 years insurance who lose their job in the south will be entitled to 60% of their income, up to a maximum of 450 pounds a week. On the other hand, job seekers in the north, the allowance here is £90.50 a week for over 25s. In other words, they're saying the problem we face is how to bring the north up to the level of the south. Now, I'll tell you, Pat, that notion of the south being a more prosperous and more provided for society in terms of social services and health is not one that anybody I know, Harley, here would subscribe to. They really don't believe that's the case. And yet, Finney seems to be saying for sure. Who's right?
It is for sure. I remember some years back, say about a decade ago, I remember reading that the old age pension, and there was an example. It was a guy in Lifford and a guy in Strabane. The guy in Lifford in the Republic of Ireland was getting something like €210 a week, and the old age pensioner in the north was getting £80. Now, Jude, there's a hell of a lot of difference in that.
There is. Yet, I know sensible people who either are living in the south, certainly about Dublin, who would lament the state of the sort of social services and compare it unfavorably with the north and say the north have a much better system. And I know people in the north, certainly, who are convinced that the northern system, bad though it is a hell of a lot better than the south. Where is that coming from? Where's that coming from?
I think it's an old sort of myth, or Jude. The
is it a myth,
of,
Pat? Is it a myth?
It is a myth, Jude, without question, Jude. If you're living in a wee village in Roscommon or Leitrim or Laois, and you're getting, I think it's, what is it, €300 now a week, or maybe more, and your wife's getting that, and you're two old age pensioners, Jude, you're living very well. You're not worrying about where the next fish and chips from. See, in the north on a winter's day, if you're on a northern pension and you're buying cola, 18 or £20 a bag, or whatever the hell it does these days, and you need 2 or 3 bags of cola, whatever the hell, and all the other stuff you're eating and your food, you're watching every penny. Jude, let's get this clear. There's a big difference in social care in the south compared to the north.
Do you think that the fact that you have to stump up every time you visit most people take out health insurance, that's a cost. But in addition to that, every time you go to your doctor or for your GP for a visit, you're going to be forking out €50 or whatever.
But maybe that's once a year, twice a year you go to the doctor. And there's what's up. There's thing now. If you're over 70, I think you can get a medical card, and also you can get some sort of dispensary card as well. That knocks off a lot of that stuff. But the whole thing, it's basically the southern system. What is Britain? I remember reading quite recently. Britain has one of the low, if not, Jude, it might be the lowest in Europe. Pension in Europe, and the south is one of the highest. So, it's not myth; it's fact.
Why haven't? Now, I didn't even know that the first report, Perspectives on Constitutional Change, had been produced by this Oireachtas Joint Committee in the Implementation of the Good Friday Agreement. I didn't know that had happened. Did you know it?
No, I didn't. By the way,
it shows you what the media, the sort of print media and the TV and radio, they're not looking at these things. So somebody should be in there translating that stuff for us and saying, look, here's what's the situation in the south, here's what's the situation in the north, that's a problem. And list the things and let people weigh up the balance. Because I'm telling you now, you could not convince people in the north that they're not in a better system for social services than in the south. And you're telling me that in the south, definitely it's superior.
Well, pensions definitely. But hey, do you know the one other thing? You know, the Good Friday Agreement was signed in 1998. The cross-border trade was something like 2 billion. Do you know, in 2022 it was 12 billion? Remember George Osborne, the former Tory Chancellor? He said that the North Centre of Interest would eventually switch from London to Dublin. And when there's now 12 billion cross-border trade, you know, Dublin and the Republic has become very important to the economy. Do you remember our friend Ray Bassett? I remember meeting with Ray about 30 years ago, and when they were negotiating all this sort of stuff, and he says the aim of the whole thing was to sort of synchronize North and South so that it was almost seamless. Now Brexit has definitely changed a lot of that, but Jude, I presume somewhere along the line, if they're going to have to sort of try and unity, they're going to have to try and make a lot of things on a level playing pitch. So that's going to be much more difficult now.
I think in the course of doing that, particularly with financial matters, which most of us don't really understand, stop talking in terms of 5-year insurance and your job entitled to 60%. So give us an example. You know, of Joe in the south and Joe in the north, or Sean, or Willie, or
Sammy,
Harry, or Sammy, or whoever. Okay, our time is up, Pat. I don't know if we have any jokes or riddles, or would you like to do a small dance for us, any chance?
No. Just here's a final question for you. Who's going to win on Sunday?
Armagh.
Armagh.
I'm going out on a limb. When I was a young boy in short trousers, Armagh in the 50s, I think it must have been the 50s. Armagh was in the All-Ireland final. And I remember my brother, who knew some Armagh people, was really big for them. We listened to it in the radio, and they were bait. So it's asking about, I think most people are tipping the Galway team, but I have a funny feeling that Armagh will do it. I think it'll be kind of like the like in the, you know, the European Euros Championships, that, you know, you had some teams there who were lowly teams, but they had such bloody spirit, such fierce determination.
Galway have beaten Dublin and they've beaten Donegal, so they look like they're going to do it. You know, so
yeah. Do you want them to get it?
Oh yeah, any Ulster team gets my vote.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying you wanted it. Okay, right, Pat. Thank you very much.
All the best, Jude.
Put on your jersey now. Get ready for.
Get on with jersey.
Or except you want to go to the Garvaghey Road and walk down it.
Walk down with the boys.
Okay.
See you later.